Coming up this weekend, we have the what are we doing here type of fight. It's Cody Stamann taking on Eddie Wineland, a marquee matchup of bantamweight fighters. And for Eddie Wineland, he's probably getting that contract slid across the table, signing it as quickly as possible because he doesn't have to take on another young striker with power in their hands. For Cody Stamann, likewise, he's not taking on another younger wrestler who can beat him in all the ground skill spots that he's been beaten in his last three fights. I mean, for Cody Stamann, this guy was kind of like the outside hotness, and right now he's 1-3 with a draw, albeit to Song Yadong in his last 5 fights. For Eddie Wineland, 1-4, his one win over Gregory Popov, who went 0-2 and then went bye-bye to the UFC. And I look at Eddie Wineland as one of those guys that he's on the edge of like the MMA Hall of Fame, but you kind of look at it and you go like, well, he's more like a Burt Blyleven type of Hall of Famer than anything. 6-9 in the UFC. He lost his one UFC title fight. It was an interim shot against Mr. Hennebrow, arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time. Nobody can ever take that away from him. But in that fight, he did get knocked out. His UFC record, again, it's in the negative. WEC champ. He was one time, and then he lost the belt after that. But if you do look at Eddie Wineland, he is forever an action type of fighter. You can see it from the picture there where he grew out his Red Dead Redemption mustache. He's all about having a good time. He's a very long-rangey boxer. He's a fun guy, and he has some pop at the end of his own shots. And again, I know he's lost 4 of his last 5 total fights, but in those fights, always something interesting. I mean, he took the sexy Mexi down his last time out, John Castaneda, before he ended up getting finished at the end of the first round in that one. But again, I look at Eddie Wineland as one of those guys that his ability to take a shot might not be there like it did when he was a younger man. For Cody Stamann, I mean, doesn't have the fastest hands. We've always known that. But then Merab's taking him down. Then Jimmy Rivera's taking him down and kind of beating him to the punch. And his last time out for Cody Stamann, he got caught by a super slick Said Nurmagomedov in a spot where, hey, it's like Cody's going to have some success. Oh boy, he just rolled right into that. Yikes. So a good opportunity for both these guys. Obviously a clash of styles, but little bit of an odd one. And it feels like they want to get, well, obviously one of these guys kind of back on the horse. Oh, without a doubt.
Cody Stamann is already 32 years of age, because it does feel like he's been in that prospect role at the bantamweight division for quite some time now. Like, I can remember all the way back when he fought Tom Duquesnoy to a split decision, and that was one of those fights to kind of say, ooh, who's going to be the next big prospect in the division? But the good thing for Cody Stamann is, if you do look at his last 5 fights, they are against some of the better fighters in the division. Like you mentioned, the Song Yadong fight, Said Nurmagomedov. Like, these are very, very good fighters, so it's not the biggest deal that he is on the losing streak. The biggest problem for Cody Stamann is that he just hasn't really evolved throughout his UFC tenure. The things he was good at when he first came in, he's still very good at those things and still very much relies on them.
The only time we've seen Cody Stamann really work
if you bring up the Brian Kelleher fight,
was his last win against Brian Kelleher. And again, heavy hearts. His brother just passed away. They made that a focal point of the build-up. And then after the fact, of course, he was very emotional. But again, since that time, we haven't really seen Stamann have much success with his hands. He's kind of gotten back to his old ways.
But even in that fight, it's not like he's like beating him up like he's Conor McGregor in his prime. Like, Cody Stamann's very stiff on the feet, and that's not something that has really shifted throughout his career. Yes, he's been able to maybe mix punches together more effectively at some points throughout his career rather than others, but still, I don't look at Cody Stamann and think, wow, he has been an evolved mixed martial artist at this stage of his career. And here's the weird thing about Cody Stamann. I think you'll appreciate this. Do you know whose career I get reminded of a lot when I think about Cody Stamann's? A much bigger guy who's now in Bellator. He's kind of like Corey Anderson. I could see Cody Stamann going to Bellator and becoming their champ, honestly. I just think in the UFC, he's come up against a lot of very poor matchups. I do think he is a good fighter who does have promise in his future. I just think he's run up against guys who stylistically have had the answer to the questions that he does pose. Because for Stamann, if you are able to defend that takedown or take him down, he's not great defensively off his back. His grappling is almost like a Sarah McMahon's, to where it's phenomenal offensively, but defensively it's almost like a turtle if you roll it over. And for Stamann, he does have really good cardio, and I do think that's going to be the key to this fight, because if Eddie Wineland's able to defend a takedown early in this fight, that's great for him. I just don't think he's going to be able to keep it up round after round, minute after minute against a guy like Stamann, but Wineland will be the more fluid guy on his feet. I do think he'll land a couple of shots. I liken him a little bit to like Tim Means later on in this card. There's some vets in their career who, as they get a little bit older, yes, they start to pile up in losses, but their losses are by decision. They might fight in a more safe way, you know, they don't take a lot of damage. Guys like Eddie Wineland, Tim Means, Matt Brown, they might have more losses than wins, but at this stage in their career, they go for it at the end of, or at the beginning of fights. They're not just going to hold on and lose a very one-sided decision. They're going to go for it, and they might get knocked out as a result. So I do think Eddie Wineland's going to bring the fight to Cody Stamann. I just don't think it's going to be a sustainable approach.
More losses than win. What do we have? Artem Lobov out there?
Well,
no, I know what you mean. Against the higher level, and especially recently. The interesting thing for Eddie Wineland, too, if you really do look at it, you consider his takedown defense, and he's had so many fights, WEC, UFC. So I went back through. Frankie Saenz took him down once. That was a fight of the night. If you do look at it, I mean, who else? Uriah Faber took him down a couple times, and Beeb took him down to win that WC belt 5 times. That was the kind of the conversation of the fight, because Wineland had a knockdown very early, and then he was just taken down at will. And for Wineland, high school wrestling background, something he's always worked on, but his boxing is really what gets it done for him. And he's one of those guys that can do such a good job of boxing on the outside, kind of like Calvin Kattar does now. Eddie Wineland can do it. It's just Kattar can really withstand every single punch thrown at him. And Eddie Wineland, sometimes there's some cracks in the armor. So we have a look at the odds for this fight. I mean, Cody Stamann opened to minus 275. He's at minus 475 right now. So the lines really jumped on Cody Stamann. For Wineland, open to plus 235. Plus 346. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprise to us as they will be to you. But I'm going to say over under 90% Stamann.
It should be. Yeah, I'll say over.
It's 96% Cody Stamann, 944 total votes, 71% by decision, 18% by knockout for the 4% that have Wineland, 45% by knockout, 37% by decision. I think Cody Stamann gets a win here, gets a decision win over Eddie Wineland. I don't think anything bad happens. I think it's a good send-off for Eddie Wineland.
It's not going to be a sexy win by any means, and that's the thing for Cody Stamann. You gotta be entertaining at a certain point. I hate to say it, because, like, sports, the wins do matter more than the losses. But in this sport, the popularity also does matter, whether you like it or not. And for Cody Stamann, his fighting style does not attract many fans. To quote the great Chael Sonnen, no one's ever canceled their Saturday plans because, Cody Stamann's fighting. So I do feel like mentally it is going to matter where Cody Stamann is in his career. Does he think he can get back into the top 15? Because he is going to need this win over Eddie Wineland if he does even want to stay in the company, especially if he wants to get back into the rankings. But I do agree. I think Stamann will have a dominant win, and hopefully it won't damage Eddie Wineland too much.
Matt throwing a ton of shade at the small town of Sparta, Michigan. They are tuning in on a Saturday night to watch Cody Stamann fight. Both of us going with the Spartan. Cody Stamann to get the win. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have. Can Wineland turn back the clock? I mean, Burt Blyleven was able to get 300 wins and 250 losses, and he pitched for decades, and we'll see if Wineland can get something like that. But again, both of us with the Spartans. Some big-time fights on this card. Our main event at 145 pounds. Josh Emmett looking to really just shout out and beat old Calvin Kattar. Can't wait for it. Keep locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.